is the Rangers Journal Night.
Yes, hello everyone. It is Friday. It is the 5th of September. Where is this year going? Oh my God, it was January about 2 weeks ago. Well, it is Gers Talk, your Friday Rangers News Roundup. And I'm joined by two fantastic people to go through some interesting talking points in the world of Rangers this week. So first up, Cammy, how you doing, mate? Long time no speak.
Aye, good. Enjoying the international break. As I said before we went live, local holiday, long weekend for me, so not back to work until Wednesday. So just enjoying a relaxing few days with it. The stresses of Rangers, and we can just chew the fat over the various topics, which is always good.
Oh, do you know what? It's weird. It's a bit of a catch-22 at the minute, isn't it? It's like you want Rangers, but at the same time you don't. So it's one of them at the minute, isn't it? Oh, the life of a Rangers fan. I wouldn't change it for the world. And also we're joined by Jack. Jack, how you doing, mate? Good to see you, pal.
Yeah, not too bad. I'm a bit loaded with a cold, so I apologise if I sound a bit stuffed up throughout this today.
Oh, it's that time of year, isn't it? Like, my missus has got it at the minute, and her family have got it. Everybody's got it. I seem to be the last man standing at the minute, so I'll be the one, because I've been off this week. I'll go back to work next week. I guarantee on that first day back, I'm going to be ill, and yeah, it's going to be one of them, innit? But no, good to have you on, pal. Good to have you on, and welcome everybody at home. Do get your comments in. Good to see you, Paul. I hope you're doing well. Theo and William as well. So I'm going to go through a basic outline of what we're going through today. So obviously been a lot happening this week, despite being the international break. Of course, the deadline day transfer window has closed. We'll be talking about the signings of Chimiti and Cornelius, and also the departures of Dessers and Cortez. They're kind of the main ones from deadline day. Of course, we did have Hamza Egaman obviously leave during the window, but obviously wasn't on deadline day. Kevin Thirlwell sat down with RTV and gave an interview this week with some very interesting talking points. So we're going to talk about that as well. A little bit on Nico Raskin, because it does appear that Nico Raskin might have a future now at Rangers, I think to the relief of every single Rangers fan in the country. Europa League package pricing, we're going to go into that. How do we compare to other clubs? And it is quite a substantial jump, and is it value for money? So we'll look at that as well. We'll talk a little bit about the Euro squad. The squad was announced, players that are out on international duty, and if we do have time, we'll touch on the Masters football that is coming back, and Kemar Roof does have a new venture as well. So a lot to talk about, and I feel like I've been waffling already. Guys, if you have any questions in the comments, do get them in, and we can maybe see if we can discuss some other bits as well. So, transfer deadline day. Obviously, we go back a year ago, Cammy, and we were expecting some signings on deadline day, and it became a bit of a damp squib, really. And I think we were faced with the reality of this probably wasn't going to be a good season last year. And then we rewind to now, a year later, we've had about 9 signing-ins by this point, and then another 2 added on deadline day. So Yusuf Chimiti, obviously from Everton, allegedly the fee is around £8 million, with add-ons potentially taking it up to £10 million. It's not often you see Rangers spending that kind of money. 4-year contract, so he's obviously expected to be a major player here at the club. So Cammy, what's your initial thoughts? Have you seen much of him in an Everton shirt?
I have got absolutely no knowledge of him at all, other than the fact that he's signing from Everton, and it's a lot of cash. He broke his foot apparently last close season, and I think that impacted his appearances at Everton. As I said on the pod, on the marathon pod on Monday, it's a lot of cash. That's for those of that remember Tor Andre Flo. Tor Andre Flo was coming in for £12 million back in 2000, but he was a Premier League goal scorer, had scored in Europe, all that sort of stuff, and over 25 years on. And £8 million isn't a lot of money in the Premier League terms, but it is a lot of money for Rangers. So I wish him well. I hope the add-ons and all that, I said this earlier in the week, you want the add-ons to kick in, because if the add-ons kick in, it means that he's been successful and Rangers have been successful. But we just have to wait and see. I'm intrigued how it works, because I thought Majowski, he's nailed on. He's your centre forward based on the way that Russell Martin wants to play. But can you pay £8 million for somebody and he's not in your starting 11 9 games out of 10? It's going to be interesting just to see if we potentially go, I'm not saying 4-4-2, but potentially 2 strikers. I know Russell Martin done that at Everton, at Southampton previously. So I'm interested just to see how the team looks. Although we've played a certain way to this point, sometimes personnel can dictate a change with regard to that. So just have to wait and see. It's a lot of money, and an early goal, a big goal early would be good for the fans and for the player.
Yeah, no, I do agree, Cammy. I'm the same as yourself. I've not seen too much of him. I know of the name, but yeah, no, not too much about him at all. Jack, staying with Chermiti, do you think this £8 million potentially rising to £10 million is a signal of intent from the board that if there is somebody they really want that will fit, they're willing to pay for it? Or do you think this could be a little bit of naivety with paying the kind of inflated fees that you see down in England? What do you reckon?
I actually spoke with Scotty on a sort of YouTube exclusive last night about this. I think the board are putting their trust in Farewell on this one. He knows the boy. He must know his mentality, his qualities. And looking at some Everton message boards, despite his pretty awful record, they actually don't think too badly of him. He has his qualities, his hold-up play. He never stops running. He was used quite a lot as a sort of late last throw of the dice substitute, which didn't really help. His minutes aren't actually great compared to games. But I'm hopeful that we've looked at this from his attribute standpoint. He's got something that we think will fit into our team. What he's good at is what we need, because we have guys that know him. I'm a bit concerned about the price tag, but it is a signal of intent. If we want a player at that sort of price range, we will go out and get him. I mean, other than Ryan Kent, we've not spent this money in 20 years, anything over sort of 4 or 5 million. So it's really nice to see. I did half expect us to kind of go out and get close to the flow record, if not beat it. I did expect them to make a statement of intent. I'm just not sure if Chermiti's the exact guy you make that with, but I'm happy to be proved wrong. I hope he comes out and he gets an early goal, because the last thing you want with his track record is it going on for 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 games.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Obviously, yourself and Cammy have both mentioned Torandri Flo. Obviously, came in for 12 million, British transfer record at the time. It's funny when you look at Torandri Flo's kind of legacy, Cammy, at Rangers. If you speak to kind of your average Rangers fan, they'll say, "Oh, Flo, he was terrible," but he did actually score quite a lot of goals for us. Is this more that the price tag was so high that you're expecting way more? Is this possibly what's going to happen with Chermiti too?
Possibly. We don't have David Murray. That was a David Murray being David Murray with regard to that. We went from an £8 million bid for Torandri Flo to 10 minutes later putting in a 12 million bid that was accepted. So, that was David Murray just bravado, which ultimately put pressure on. But Torandri Flo, the difficulty for Torandri Flo was Celtic were pretty much dominant at that point. It was the latter stages of the sort of Advocat era, and he was just, Celtic were starting to get the stranglehold with regard to Sutton and Harpson and the big guys up front for them and that sort of thing. So Torandri Flo, I mean, I'm sure he scored 27 in one season, but he didn't score in the big games. We always talk about goals against Celtic. I mean, I know he scored on his debut in a 5-1, I think it was a 5-1 win against them, but he didn't do that often enough, and I think that's Paul's right. It means his goal return's decent. If Chermiti can come in and give us, if he can come in and give us 1 and 2 this season, I think he'll have had a good season, to be perfectly honest with you. But the fee, it is what it is. I was going to say that we were trying to sign Raksaki on loan from Crystal Palace, and I think Crystal Palace would have wanted upwards of £10 million for him. Would the noise have been the same if you had signed Raksaki from Crystal Palace? Is the noise greater because the mood around Rangers at this moment is wholly negative, and it's Dan Purdy and Kevin Thelwell who signed Shermeti at Everton? So is that making people's opinion negative because it's something, you know, it almost appears a lazy signing in a way?
Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from. It's definitely something that I think a lot of us looked at that fee and thought it's not going to be that fee. And I think even a couple of places did report that it's not that fee. And then it does seem now that Sky Sports have gone with 8 million plus a package up to 10 million. But as you said earlier, Cammy, I hope he does get us up to that 10 million, because that means he's doing something right. So, yeah, all the best to him. He's got some big strikers' boots to fill. So, Jack, I'm going to come to you now. Obviously, Derek Cornelius, he's arrived on a season-long loan from Marseille, our foes from 1992-93. We've got an option to buy in there. I don't think it's a compulsory option to buy. He can play both centre-back, left centre-back. We have been crying out for a kind of left centre-back. It does bring a little bit of experience and versatility to the squad. Is this a good signing for us, Jack?
Yeah, I think so on a few parts. First of all, the loan with the option, it's a try before you buy, and that sort of price tag is set. Not sure what it is, but it's set, so you can go out and purchase him if he does well. And if you were able to do this with all transfers, I think you would. Other things, he's got some good attributes. He's very good at these sort of diagonal balls down the park, which is something we've not had since Connor Goldson left. We've been very stuck in the sort of short passing or hoof it clear. He's left-sided. John Souttar, as much as I like John Souttar, is not a left-sided defender. He struggles badly on that side. He did when he played next to Goldson, and he has again this year. So Cornelius, you know, natural left-hand sided. He's an international. He's experienced, but I think the most important thing is he's a winner. He's been at two clubs in Malmo in Sweden and Marseille in France, where you pretty much need to win every week. He's not going to come here not ready for the expectations. He's won 2 league titles and a cup in Sweden. Of course, Marseille don't have it easy with PSG, but their fans still expect him to go out and win every week unless they're playing PSG. So he's not going to be overawed by the crowd, by the pressure, which is something we need. And he'll be able to talk to Souttar, Giga, Fernandez, whoever's next to him, and kind of calm them down throughout games, because he has that experience, and make sure they don't get overawed by it as well. So yeah, great signing, I think, on paper at least.
Yeah, no, definitely. I do agree. And I think he's got the potential to be the best Canadian defender in Scotland. But yeah, so Cammy, Cornelius, obviously, he's got quite a strong kind of defensive record. However, would you say that there are maybe some similarities to a certain Robin Proper that on paper looks good, but might not always be the case? Do you think he might be able to adapt to Scotland a bit easier, having played out in Sweden?
I think so. I'm trying to be positive on this one. I'm pleased that we've brought in a left-sided. I pretty much echo everything that Jack said. We've brought in somebody that's versatile, can play in a 2, can play in a 3, could be a left-back on an emergency, has the leadership. It helps strengthen the... I was going to try and get through a pod with it, talking about strengthening the spine of the side, but it's good that we finally signed somebody at the end of the window that certainly ticks the box with regard to a centre defender. So I'm trying to just forget about Robin Proper. Cornelius, it's a fantastic name. You know, we've signed some cracking names, and it's like, I don't know how you get songs for all these guys, to be perfectly honest with you. But I'm positive, and the try before you buy, I think, is great. We have the option, but we haven't done the Oscar Cortez where we are obligated to sign, and we all know how that's played out, which we're obviously going to talk about. But yeah, I'm positive about that. I think Canada game on the 9th, so that's something to potentially catch up with to see. But ultimately, what he does in a Rangers jersey, but what I've seen and heard about him, he certainly ticks a lot of boxes for what we require in that area. I think Jack's right with regard to Suter. I like the fact that we now have the option where we could play Giga and Cornelius, you could play Suter and Cornelius, you could play the three of them together. Certain home games where your two wing backs in that situation could be two wingers because you're dominating you're effectively playing three defenders and 7 attackers just to try and create a bit of chaos. But I like the fact that it appears that we could be flexible, and I have said that about Russell Martin. If he shows flexibility from game to game, then that's all the better. It's if we become stubborn and we stick to this is the only way I want to play, then that's when nothing's going to change. To be honest, we'll have to be flexible, and we've signed two forwards, which helps the spine, and we've obviously lost Cyril Dessers. But middle of the park's the only. I would still like to have seen a number 6, and I would still like to have seen a left back in by the close of the window. But you're never going to get everything in one, and I think that's 13 we've brought in across the summer, which is a lot of business. And hopefully it's now, as the window has slammed shut, as they say, we can get the head down and try to start winning games.
Yeah, definitely. The hard work starts now, which is a quote that I think now the window's closed, the hard work starts, which is I think what Thirlwell said in the week to RTV. Yeah, well, like Jack said earlier about Cornelius, just to touch on him there, we haven't really had that kind of ball playing centre back that can kind of come forward a little and then get a great ball forward. We've seen Suter do it a couple of times, but it's nothing like Goldson was able to, and actually I think we do miss that. And that's the thing, I think a lot of people said that a lot of people weren't too sad when Goldson left, but there were a lot of things that we did miss from that team when he did leave, and that was definitely one of them. So obviously we had some transfer deadline day departures. Cyril Dessers, that kind of been rumbling on for a long time, but it wasn't AEK that got in there, it was Panathinaikos. So we've had to console Mitch this week. He's extremely sad, not just that Dessers has left, but the fact he's in a green shirt with a shamrock on it. Been here 2 years, scored quite a lot of goals. Was it the right time to go, Jack, for Dessers? Is it the right time?
Yes and no. Sorry. I think if you had the ideal choice, you'd probably let Danilo go ahead of him, but just due to his form and injuries, it's just not possible to let him go at the moment. No one's going to come in for him. So, yeah, Dessers, at his age, the price you're getting for him, it's a good move to make. The boy scored a lot of goals. He's a great guy. You can just tell that by the way he interacts on and off the park. But just the same as Cammy mentioned with Flo. How many big goals did he get? He got some, but a lot of times when it really, really mattered, he wasn't there. The penalty shootout against Celtic springs to mind, so there was a few issues with that. But I like the big man. He scored a lot of goals. To be honest, if we didn't have Cyril Dessers, we would have been in a far worse position over these last 2 years. But a good move for him. He gets to play in the heat. He'll probably be on a decent bit of money. Right time to cash in, and I think if Chermiti's your replacement for Egeman, Miovski's a perfect replacement for Dessers. I think we've went out and we've upgraded there. You can talk about Chermiti all you want, but Miovski's an upgrade on Dessers. He's younger, he's a more natural finisher, and his hold-up play is more consistent than Dessers. So I think we've actually upgraded in that position.
Do you know what? I do agree. And looking back at the Old Firm game, when you saw Miovski getting stuck in and kind of tracking back and getting the ball and winning possession and stuff, and you're like, right, we've got a fiery striker here. It's almost like he hasn't left Scottish football, isn't it? It is good to see. Cammy, obviously we've touched on Dessers there. Anything you have to add? Is it the right time for Dessers to go?
I think Jack summed it up perfectly. Yeah, there's nothing I can disagree with. I wish him well. He showed great mentality. There was times he was booed on the pitch, he was booed off the pitch. He recovered from that. there was times where he could quite easily have spat the dummy out and reacted to the stick that he was getting from the supporters, but he didn't. He got his head down, kept scoring goals. Wish him well, and it's an opportunity. £3.5 million for somebody that 31 next birthday, and it gives him a last payday before he hangs up his boots in a warmer climate. So yeah, but the one thing we have to do now is replace the goals of Cyril Dessers and Vasa Cherny. 50 goals probably between the two of them. So that's a lot to take out of the side. As much as Dessert has had his limitations, 25 goals, that's the sort of standard that we're going to expect, certainly from Bojan Majowski, somebody coming in that knows the league. And I think the words of Dessers, I don't know if it was. I'm always sceptical with these parting messages. It's somebody that works for him that's wrote that. That's no Cyril Dessers sitting on his notes on his iPhone. That's for sure. But yeah, it's. I wish the big man well, and I hope he scores plenty of goals in Greece, and our paths potentially cross at some point again in the future, because I think he would get a nice reception off the Rangers support.
Yeah, he was a nice guy, and I think that's the thing. He never hid. It's easy for your head to go right down if you've missed an absolute sitter, but he always used to plug away, and you can't deny his work rate. And he was just a nice guy as well. His parting words did seem nice. As you say, though, you've broke the magic there, Cammy. His assistants probably wrote it for him, but yeah, no, definitely. Sticking with you, Cammy, one other outgoing, which was a deadline day loan move to Sporting Gijon in Spain. Oscar Cortez, it's obviously a loan. It's not been a great time for him at Rangers, has it?
He looks a player that's devoid of confidence. I think the injuries he's only a young guy. He showed early promise in the 5 or 6 games before he got injured. I wouldn't have agreed to the loan with obligation, but that's done and dusted. There's not a lot we can do about it now. It's unfortunately a transfer that thus far has not played out the way that we would have wanted it. I just hope that he goes out and plays 35, 40 games and builds confidence. Whether that means that he returns to Rangers or whether it means that it attracts attention from other clubs and potentially we can recoup a sizable amount of the fee that we've committed, because I do have my doubts about his suitability to play in Scottish football, to be honest with you. But for this loan, I think it's perfect. He has to go out, play games, and try and get a run. Paul's spot on. Try and get a run of consistent games without injury. If he can do that, then that can only help him, and then it can only help Rangers, whether it's bringing him back or being able to sell him to another club.
Yeah, no, I do agree. Jack, I remember when we saw Cortez come in, I think it was one of his first games was in February, wasn't it, last year against Hearts, where we absolutely thrashed them 5-0 at Ibrox, and he looked the part. He was used on the opposing wing. He looked like somebody that you could use on both wings. He looked dangerous, and I thought, wow, we've got a player here. This squad's coming together. And then, of course, the dreaded Rangers injury comes in, and they're never the same player ever again, eh?
Yeah, there was a couple of games. I mean, that Hearts game we won 5-0. I think it was close to. We just went top of the league, beating St Johnstone ahead of the Kilmarnock away game. I mean, that was the day I really felt that year. Right, we can do this. You had Cortez running rings down the wing. You had Diamandi scoring from outside the box every week. Don't know what happened there, but things were really positive. And then the Cortez injury was just kind of the start or the decline, because the boy looked really like an unknown quantity. He was tricky, he was quick, he would get to the byline. And then there was talk at the end of the season about getting back on our loan, and you're like, yep, that makes sense, get him on loan, and then we can look at it maybe in January, but getting him in permanently. But I think from the second the obligation was confirmed, everyone was like, this is risky, and it's proved to be risky, and he's not getting the run of games to get back to match fitness, and he's not going to get it because he's not match fit and he's not performing. So it's a catch-22 sort of there. So I think the loan makes sense. The fact that it isn't until the end of the season and not until January, I've not seen any mention of a recall clause. makes me think Martin doesn't fancy him, and this is with a view of getting him out permanently. If there was a sort of January recall thing in it, I'd be thinking, right, it's to get fitness and bring him back. But the fact that's not there, I think this could be the end of his time at Ibrox.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I think you do reach a point in your career where if it's just not happening, it's just not happening. And the crazy thing is we've just paid that 4.5 million now for him. So hopefully he can get a run of games together and he might be a little bit more suited to elsewhere. It could be a mixture of things. He just never stayed fit for long enough. And like the comment says here from Paul, he was rushed back from injury and he got injured again. So yeah, hopefully if he can stay fit, he can be a decent player somewhere. So that's our kind of transfer deadline day ingoings and outgoings at Rangers. It was a bit busier than usual and definitely much busier than other clubs in Scotland, to name but a few, on deadline day. But also this week, Kevin Thelwell has had sat down with RTV to go through a few things, and he had some very interesting points on looking ahead, Nico Raskin, and of course backing Russell Martin. Now, Cammy, he had this little kind of quote that I've kind of like just taken from the interview. Obviously, Thelwell expressed some strong support for the head coach. He says, I've been very lucky over the course of my career to work with some very good managers. He's one of the best, very, very good coach, very good on the grass, very well organised. Is this just a general throwaway comment, do you think? Or do you think that everybody is behind Martin here at the club?
Well, I think Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart were part of the interview process. So I think they were the guys that led and basically put Russell Martin into place. So if they were to accept defeat this early in the season, it's basically on them as well. So the vehement support is exactly what I would expect him to say. I don't think what he thought on the 7th of June when Russell Martin was appointed should have changed in the course of 3 months, although it has been a very bumpy start to the season. So he basically said, I mean, I think Paul's saying too many pre-scripted questions. That's what you're going to get. It's club media. They're not going to ask any difficult questions. They asked all the questions that I would want to be asked. But if you're not going to get groundbreaking content with regard to these sort of things. I thought it was very much standard fare, recognising, explaining. I think I said on my own social media, lots of words and explanations, but as I have said, a lot actions speak louder than words, and that applies to everybody: Patrick Stewart, Kevin Thelwell, Russell Martin, Nico Raskin, everybody. I've heard it all before. I just want to see a winning Rangers team on the park and it's being competitive. That's all that matters. You know, the words don't matter. He could win an Oscar for the best interview. Doesn't mean anything if we don't go out against Hearts and win that game, and then take it and then try to build from there. But yeah, it was good that he came out, and I think what was that, the second day of I think it was maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. Everybody thinking, oh, we're going to get a nice relaxing few days on Rangers social media without anybody moaning about stuff or looking for something to be offended about. Rangers TV didn't let us down with regard to that, but I thought the content was pretty much what I expected to hear. There was only, I don't know if you'll go on to it, there was only the one issue around the net spend, which did, I think, raise a few eyebrows with regard to that. So I think it'd be interesting we're not going to find out how that's made up, but the general support for Russell Martin, whilst recognising we have to win, and I hope that pragmatism and that flexibility has been discussed within the club, because that's what we will need to be a winning Rangers team this season, is being pragmatic and flexible and all these sort of things.
Yeah, no, it was obviously, like yourself said, and of course Paul said, you aren't going to get any pressurised questions. This is a PR exercise for the club, and it's to show what they're doing positively. So you're always going to have that kind of positive outlook. Jack, do you think those words there from Thirlwell, do you think that solidifies that the club is still fully behind Russell Martin, or do you think that could change with a couple of defeats or a couple of more draws?
I think there was discussions after the Bruges game, clearly, because things did change for the Celtic game. We dropped the defenders back deeper. We went longer, more. There just seemed to be a sort of different style of play. It wasn't completely altered, but it was still the same core. But it looked like he adapted some things, and I imagine after the Bruges game, he was told we know there was a meeting when they get back after the recovery. I imagine he was told this isn't good enough, this can't continue, and I think changes have been made, and I think Celtic was a bit more positive. Now, we weren't much of a threat going forward, but defensively and in midfield, we were much more solid, much more in control. We didn't get as much danger, which was good. So I think give him 2 weeks on the grass where the guys are on international break to improve on the stuff he's already adjusted, and we should hopefully see a bit of improvement after international break. But of course, if it reverts to the way it was, and we lose the Hearts game, the Hibs game, then the season's effectively done and it should be out then. But I'm hopeful that he has finally clicked after the Bruges defeat that it's not working, and he's made the change on the grass, and I'll go forward with that. And my laptop's just told me I need to grab the charger, guys. I'll be back in 1 wee second.
No
Sorry,
worries,
boys.
no worries. That's all right. Live podcasting, these things happen. Don't worry. Cammy, I'll come to you. There were some more comments from Thirlwell in regards to kind of the players in the transfer window, kind of in regards to business and squad development. He said that we've got a nice balance within the group, some young and hungry players that can help us now, but all can also develop and stay with us for a longer period. He also said, in my view, we've improved the group across all parts of the team, defence, midfield and attack. Would you agree with that at the minute, Cammy? Do you think we have improved in most areas?
I think the jury's out, to be perfectly honest with you. I wasn't massively positive on the pod on Monday night about the business that we've done. I still think we're short in a couple of areas. I think there's a glaring hole in the left-hand side of the back four. I think Magoma has come in and done really well, but it was slightly concerning that he spoke about players that could do a job in that position. I just want somebody that can do a job. I don't want somebody that can just fill in. I would like a talk about. I am like a broken record, but I just want specialists that can actually do the job that we sign them for. So I don't agree. We have on paper guys on the wings and what have you, and a bit of variation, but the likes of Asgard, we haven't seen enough. Rodwell hasn't had a great start. These guys have to use the international break, I think, particularly Rothwell, to get fitter. Square pegs, round holes, I think, hasn't been quite as much of a thing in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but I think in the first few games of the season, Max Aarons playing left back, that shouldn't be a thing. You should always have a left-sided player playing left back. So the only thing that will judge if we are better, and again, this is repeating myself, if we go and beat Hearts and then we go and beat Hibs and then you go to Livingston, you go to Falkirk, and then you have a good start to Europa League, and by the time we get to the next international break, the mood that is negative on the 5th of September come the 5th of October has changed, because you've actually started to win games of football, and that's the only way Russell Martin's going to get people back on board and start to believe that there is potential for us to be competitive this season. And it's winning games of football is the only way we can judge whether a player in any position has got the ability and the mentality to play for Rangers. So he's obviously going to say that it's a better side because he came in on the 1st of June. He's not going to say that I don't think I've done a good job across the course of the last 8 weeks. He's led it with Dan Purdy. So again, very much words that you would expect him to say. PR puff piece. That's essentially what it is.
Yeah, no, definitely. Jack, I'm not sure if you got that full kind of quote, but I'll read the last part of it and see if you kind of agree. In my view, we've improved the group across all parts of the team, defence, midfield, attack. Do you think that is the case, or is this obviously just what you kind of have to do when you're in that position in front of your club TV?
I think defensively, Cornelius on paper is an upgrade. On proper, I think, I don't know, Magoma does seem a bit better than Jeffy, but just in terms of numbers, we're weaker out there. At right back, Tavernier's still going to be your man if Aarons doesn't have some massive upgrade in form. So I'd say the defence is probably slightly improved. Midfield, Rothwell doesn't look up to it. I don't know if there's an injury, a fitness issue, so that's a decline. Asgard's not really impressed me so far, but I understand he is working his way back from an injury. Willing to give him time. Gassama looks a great signing out left. Ant-Man started well, tailed off a bit. I'd like to see more of Mikey Moore. I think it's still too early to tell if we've improved overall. Miovski, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's an upgrade on Dessers, but Chermiti over Igaman, it remains to be seen. We didn't really have much choice in that one with Igaman obviously refusing to play, but yeah, too early to tell for me. I think on paper so far it's a decline, but I think you can only really judge them when you're maybe 20, 25 games into a season. They've had time to really give it a go. But I mean, I'm with the guys in the comments. Paul, if he doesn't beat Hearts and we don't start winning, then he's not going to have the time to get him better. But I mean, I'm hopeful that Martin's learned his lesson after his first few games. He's not underestimating Scottish football anymore. He knows what needs to be done, and we can see a big improvement after the international break, because Celtic fans are angry as well, despite their good start. So if we can put the pressure on them, they might falter, but their mood matters nothing if they're able to go out and swan about games knowing there's no pressure on them.
Yeah, no, 100% there, Jack. I totally agree with you there. I totally agree. Yeah, I would say there's been a slight change from that Old Firm game. So maybe Martin is now looking at things a little bit differently, but then you might always treat an Old Firm game differently to how you would treat some other games. One kind of comment I'll just go through quickly from Thelwell, kind of what Cammy touched on earlier. He highlighted some key values. So honesty, hard work, respect, humility, aggression, intensity. It's got to be a basic fundamental for performances going forwards. I think this group of players have shown they can deliver that. Now they must hold themselves to account, and we must hold them to account. So that is quite a big statement there. We must hold them to account. Well, as Rangers fans, we always will. One thing that Cammy touched on as well in regards to some of the finances, Thelwell claimed, Cammy, a net spend of around £20 million. Though some of us supporters have challenged this figure. We reckon it's probably more closer to 10 million. However, this is just based on some of the reported numbers. There could be loan fees and other things, and there are some undisclosed in there as well. Does this surprise you, Cammy, this amount, 20 million?
Massively. I think I didn't expect us to get the players for free that we've got on loan. Loan fees are part and parcel. Bayern Munich have just paid Chelsea £15 million for Nicholas Jackson, so it tells you how crazy some loan fees can be. But that can be the only thing that's actually included to bump it up. I still think 20 million net is significantly higher. I just think that it frustrates me with regard to the way Rangers communicate. As much as this is a PR puff piece, there's always something that leaves a question. You know, there's never 100% clear messaging. We're all guessing as to how this 20 million is it this 20 million, have they used the 20 million because that was the investment that was put in by the 49ers? So it's almost that's us. We've spent the 20 million that was approved at the AGM sort of thing. I don't know, but it does add a wee bit of pressure, to be perfectly honest with you. There's pressure at Rangers, but when you look at that, how many Rangers managers in recent years have been backed by that amount of money? So that only adds the pressure to Russell Martin and to the players to actually start winning games of football, because otherwise, and you've seen it on social media, people have spoke about it on other podcasts. I've seen Andy Halliday talking about it. You're spending that sort of money, you need to be beating the teams that you should be beating in Scotland. And that's before you get started about Celtic. That's way in excess of what the other 10 teams cumulatively have spent. So you need to show that you can beat the 10 teams. And I think I might have said that once or twice across the last 3 or 4 years. But until you can start beating the jobbers, then, spending 2 million, spending 20 million, doesn't matter. We should be doing it because we have got a bigger budget and we should be able to sign better players and what have you. But it did surprise me slightly.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And of course, we've been in this boat before, obviously under Michael Beale. Figures were around that then for that kind of team, and a lot argued that it wasn't an upgrade, and we all saw what happened that season. But yeah, no, definitely we should be beating the teams around us. Just a quick one, guys, everybody watching at home, make sure you are liking and subscribing, turn the notification icon on if you're on YouTube. YouTube is the best way to watch this. You can watch it on your telly, you can watch it on your phone, and of course there will be the audio version of this podcast on Spotify and Apple later on today in all your usual stores. But do like and subscribe, it does help us, it doesn't cost you a thing, and it helps us and the algorithm and everything, so do make sure you do that, guys. Obviously Thirlwell, we're talking about Thirlwell. He had his sit down with RTV this week, and there was some points on Nico Raskin. Now, Nico Raskin looked like he was kind of frozen out the side. It looked like he'd essentially been told to go. There's been a lot of debate between us Rangers fans this summer that if he's not going to sign the new contract that's allegedly on the table, then we do have to sell, which is understandable, because we've been terrible at that in the past, at not selling players at the right time, and it looked like he was out the door. However, there does seem to be a bit of a change of heart. And Thirlwell did say that there will be a sit-down conversation with Raskin after the international break to discuss his future and his role within the team. He also stressed that Raskin's success at Rangers this season is crucial for both the club and for Raskin personally, particularly, of course, with the World Cup on the horizon, which the world stage, there probably will be teams coming calling if he does feature. So, Jack, Nico Raskin, how are you feeling about this situation at the minute? Because obviously it looked like he was told to go. They looked like it had been a bit of a bust-up. There was something involving Nico Raskin's dad, I think, on social media. Of course, nothing's ever... there's always dirty laundry involving Rangers online and other things, but it's a good thing Raskin's staying, is it, or isn't it?
Yeah, so the whole situation was a bit of a mess. First came out, reported that after that, they obviously came back from Bruges. His dad had posted stuff on Facebook. They'd done their rehab. They had a meeting. Then it came out that he'd been told to train with the bomb squad. And then I think it was 4 lads were saying, no, that's not true. And he's not been offered a contract. And then the Rangers Review and the mainstream media are all saying, no, it is true. And it was a bit confusing that first day on social media. And then it looked like he was going to go. But by all accounts, it seems like the two of them are willing to make amends, which shows a lack of ego from the two of them, especially from Martin, who's had questions over his sort of ego so far. So it's good. It's good to see. I hope the talks go well and we can get Nico back in the squad, because they're a much better team with him in the squad than out of it. The reports from 4 lads that seem to come from Martin's camp that he's not actually been offered a contract were surprising to me, because that's really surprising. A guy with 2 years left, with the value he's got, the ability he's got, is not actually getting a deal on the table. So I think once this is all sorted, once everything calms down, we need to get that deal on the table. And then we need to relook at this situation in January and in the summer, because we can't have a guy going into another year of his last year of his deal, running it down. But for now, with Joe Rothwell's lack of form and Connor Barron, we know what he's good at, what he's not good at. Nico Raskin's the best option in that position, and we need to find a way to get him back in the team.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. He's not had the best start this year, but then a lot of players in this team have looked a little off it, possibly due to tactics and the way that we're playing. Cammy, where do you sit in? Are you team Raskin or are you team sell? This has got to be a good thing for the club and for Raskin, isn't it?
No, I'm delighted he's staying. The word over the weekend that he was going to go loan with obligation to a Crystal Palace or a Wolves or somewhere like that, and loan with obligation is, that's a permanent transfer. You're never going to see him again. But I was very consistent early on in the window that if he wasn't going to sign a contract, and I still do believe that if Nico Raskin and his agent had a better offer, and it was an offer was acceptable to Rangers, that Nico Raskin would not be a Rangers player. He's been very honest since early on in his Rangers career that he wants to play in a better league. I don't think that's... but I think we're in a situation where it's just we've all worked with bosses that we didn't hit it off with straight away, and I think that's very clear between Nico and Russell Martin. But as I did say multiple times, there's two sides to every story. And I think that ultimately Neil McCann, Barry Ferguson spoke about how difficult Nico can be and how he's a challenging player, etc. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's good to have players in a dressing room that are prepared to challenge, but you also have to realise the manager's the manager and you're being asked to do a job, and if you're not following the manager's instructions. So I think that's been the crux of it. I think after the Motherwell game, he spoke about players not following an instruction. We said at the time Nico got substituted. So I think it's went on from there. I would be very surprised if there hasn't been... I'm not saying there's a contract sitting on the table, but I'll be astonished if there hasn't been a conversation said about it. Dujon Sterling on his Instagram had replied to Nico saying, sign the deal. This is a guy that's his teammate, so I'm not dismissing what other people are saying is the case, but I will be surprised if Kevin Thelwell hasn't touched base and said, do you fancy that? That will hopefully form part of the conversation after the international break. I would love to keep Nico a bit longer, to enjoy Nico for a bit longer, for Callum to get wear out his Raskin 43 away top, and for us to just basically enjoy Nico for a bit longer and still get a good fee. Ultimately, Nico needs a strong season if he's going to make the Belgian squad. He was on the bench last night, never came on. It'll be interesting to see if he's involved in the second game. So Nico will have to park the ego. Russell Martin will need to park the ego. We'll just need to bang heads together and work for the better of Rangers, because it's not about Russell Martin. It's not about Nico Raskin. It's about Rangers.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think we can kind of dangle that carrot, so to speak, to go, you need to have a good season here, and then the world is your oyster. Because we all know we're going to see that Raskin name on the back of a top team shirt at some point in the next few years. We all know it is Belgian international and a very, very good player. Now, moving swiftly on, we've got lots of topics we've been covering today, but one big one I want to talk about now is the Europa League ticket packages. So I'll read out what Rangers put out on their press release. So ticket packages will begin to go on sale on Thursday the 4th of September, with season ticket holders being given priority to purchase the 4-match packages. We'll also be reintroducing a tiered pricing structure for the home fixtures in the league phase of the 2025-26 UEFA Europa League. So obviously they go in a little bit about how people value their own seat, and they feel it's fair that prices affect those differences. They say it's not unusual, like Tom Jones said once, it's standard across Europe, and it's the same principle we already use for the season tickets, and have previously used in European matches. So top tier price, the difference would be around £5 per game, they reckon. So I think that's kind of from the top from the top price tier to the bottom, so that would be the main difference. So as an example, an adult season ticket holder in the Copeland Rea will pay £42 per game if they buy the 4-match package. If they sit close to the goal line in the Sandy Jardin, they'll pay £44, and if they sit in the centre of the Sandy Jardin, they'll pay £47. So we are seeing these different ticket prices now. Are they fair though? You look at our kind of average price, I think, is around £39, give or take a couple of quid. But you're seeing the team at the other end of the city, I think they're around about £24 per game. So there's a bit of a massive difference. Cammy, is this right and fair?
I think, firstly, the other side of the city have got 10,000 extra seats, so I think that's where they are able to consistently across the last 5 or 6 years. Their European packages have always been cheaper, but they do have the extra seats, so they can afford to do that. I think personally it's a wee bit overpriced. It raises the question, how much would the ticket package have been if we had made it to the Champions League group phase? You're talking about in excess of £200 for 4 games. I think that's essentially, but it's not I'm surprised, disappointed. I look at it purely from a selfish point of view. I am £44 per game. I think the last qualifier against Bruges was, so it's about a £6 or £7 increase since the Bruges playoff. My 8-year-old, and it doesn't matter whether he's 8 or whether he's 16, he's £24 a game at 8-year-old, and I just think it's a wee bit high with regard to the price, and I do understand the tiered approach. I don't think any of the 4 matches will see 50,000 people inside Ibrox as it stands. I just think people will make their decisions based on cost and also based on the fact that there's a lot of negativity around the club. So for me, I think if you price it slightly less, you potentially get more people in. I think I shared in the chat earlier on, I think if you're public sale and you're buying a ticket for one of them, it's going to be in excess of £50. And that's just to go to the game, and none of these fixtures are particularly exciting. None of them are, I know Roma, I would rather Rangers were going to Rome, to be honest with you. That would have been good. But I think it's not an attractive league phase for me that deserves prices of that nature, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, definitely. It is. It's something that the club say that they've based a lot of this around fan feedback they met with the fan advisory board. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think the exact pricing would have been discussed there, but I think a lot of the kind of points came from there, Jack. So what they reckon from the fan feedback was to keep the model simple and easy to understand, avoid too many different price tiers, ensure the gap between top and bottom tier is reasonable, and minimise year-on-year price increases. So they say that feedback's directly shaped the structure of the new model. Where do you sit with this, Jack? Is this right, or is this just something now that you see within modern football? Obviously, Cammy's mentioned there that when he's taking the little man to the games now, it's just another added cost.
Yeah, I remember when I first started going to games myself. I had a season ticket with my dad when I was younger, when Walter's second spell. But going to games with my friends under Ali and Stuart McCall, when we were 15, 16, you could go up with a ticket, obviously get a ticket for a £5 for a 16-year-old. And now you're looking at, I know it's a different level of competition, but an extra £20 on that in less than a decade is a bit wild. But yeah, Mitch mentioned the fact that it's going to move to dynamic pricing. We've seen that with Oasis concerts over the summer. You see it with a lot of events, so it's going to be that way moving forward. These American guys are going to try and get as much money as they can out of this club. I still think they'll do the best for us on the park, but their main aim is going to be to make as much money as they can, build the club up financially and sell it for as much as they can, however, down the line. So it's something we're going to need to get used to. We're going to get fleeced in terms of this stuff, in terms of merchandise, in terms of your pies at half time. It's going to cost more year on year. It's just going to be completely Americanized. If you go to any sort of event in America, you'll see how much it sort of costs there. If you go down to Wembley, it's expensive, and it's just going to keep going that way. Unfortunately, I'm not happy with it, but there's no really much point moaning about it because it's not going to change. They're just going to keep doing it unless we vote with our feet, which I don't really see us doing over something like this. Then nothing's going to change.
Yeah, that's exactly it. If there are still bums on seats, then nothing will change, unfortunately, with this. And I can understand it, like you said there. When I used to go to games, you'd get a ticket for 20 quid as an adult. Not always on some of the bigger ones. Obviously, you might have to go through a friend who knew a friend, but the increase is insane, really, when you look at it. 50%, 100% increase, 20 years ago. I know things have changed in football now, and we have to kind of keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. The EPL sometimes can be a big hindrance, being so near, and the amount that they spend on players and their costs and everything. And I think us being a big club in Europe and in European football, I think doesn't help that. When you win the league in Scotland, you get £3 million. So yeah, no, definitely it's something that I don't think is going to change or even lower anytime soon with inflation and things, but I just think football is sadly becoming less and less the working person's game. And you look at the roots of football, how it all started, and fan groups and stuff, and it's sad, really, because it costs an absolute fortune to take your family to the game, and especially if you've got a few kids, season tickets and stuff, it's an expensive business. Also, the European squad was announced this week, so I'll just go through it quickly. So Jack Butland, Liam Kelly, Kieran Wright for the keepers, Tavernier, Aaron Suter, Cornelius, Dija, Magoma, Fernandez and King for the defence. Midfielders: Rothwell, Barron, Diamande, Asgard, Cameron, Gassam, Raskin, Mikey Moore, Chomiti, Ant-Man, Miovski, Gentles and Danilo for forwards there. So obviously some interesting omissions there. Now obviously not everyone can be included due to the fact that we do have some UEFA homegrown rules, where you have to have, I think, 8 players trained at Rangers or Scottish clubs. But one of the big ones, Cammy, Bijrami, he is not in that squad. Is that the right decision based on the kind of players that are there, or is it just the fact that maybe Martin just doesn't see a future for him at the club?
I think he probably sees a future for him, but I think it's just your limited play. I mean, I think we've brought in 13 players, and I think all 13 of the new signings have made the European squad. So I think he looks at other guys and thinks he can play there. He can play in the same sort of position as Bajrami. It's just unfortunate. I don't think we're the only. I was looking at the English sides, and Man City, and all these teams. There's big hitters are missing out from their squad, sort of thing. But I don't think Bajrami was part of the squad for the Bruges game, so I don't think it's a massive surprise that he isn't involved. But as often happens, Rangers players sometimes become better when they're not playing or they're not selected, sort of thing. Bajrami's done okay so far this season, but I think Bajrami in, Rothwell out. I think they're playing two totally different positions. Bajrami's more of a wide stroke 10. Rothwell, as much as he's not been good so far, 6/8. So I don't think you have to try to tick all the boxes with regard to coverage across multiple positions. And Russell Martin obviously thinks that he's got enough players that can play the roles that Bajrami can, and that's ultimately, I don't think there's anything underlying. I think if he could have selected them, he would have, but just not enough spaces.
Yeah. Obviously, Jack, Kieran Dowell has been interestingly left out the squad now. It's an interesting one. Does this kind of show that Dowell was only kind of being utilised because there was nobody else to utilise before other players came in, or is maybe Dowell, they looking at him maybe like Hammy was saying, more for the SPFL?
Well, I think the main issue is probably Dowell's injured. I think it's a foot or an ankle injury or something like that. I think along with Dujon Sterling, he's been left out simply because they're not going to be available for the first three games, maybe. So, I mean, I don't see a place for Dowell in the team anymore. I think the amount of midfield options we brought in the final sort of couple of weeks of the window kind of make him surplus to requirements. I imagine he might fill in. He might come in for the Hibs League Cup game or the Scottish Cup game in January. He might get a couple of run-outs, but I don't see him playing too much. I know Martin likes him. He likes him having around the dressing room, so I imagine he will be here for the season. But if he plays more than maybe 6-7 more games, I'll be very surprised. Sterling's one I'm a bit surprised at. I thought maybe further, because this goes into the end of January, this league phase. I thought maybe we could have used him as cover at left back, but again, same as Dowell, he's going to miss the first 3 or 4 games, so maybe you just hope you can make do on that sort of standard as well.
Do you know what? I totally forgot about that. It just shows my head's been in the cloud this past week, but I totally forgot he was injured. It actually makes total sense now. Where Martin Martin hasn't seen the light, of course. But there we go. So that is kind of the European squads. That's our thoughts on that. Obviously, the pod's overrunning a little bit. I'm just going to go into now the international duties. So players that are currently out on international duty, you got John Suter, who obviously is featuring for Scotland, plays against Poland tonight, and then Portugal on the 8th, so it could be some good experience for him. Conor Barron as well, if he does manage to start, he could feature in some of those games as well. It's his first senior call-up for Conor Barron. Cammy, Conor Barron, do you think he could add a bit of steel in midfield there? Somebody that can kind of tidy up a little bit and be a bit solid there
for Scotland.
For Scotland, yeah. Sorry.
No, I think he's away. I think he's away to train somewhere different for the next week or so. Essentially, I don't think he's got any. I think he will. Steve Clarke, I don't pay a great deal of attention, but Steve Clarke has got his favourites with regard to who he trusts. So I think Conor Barron had a very good game against Celtic, and I think there's plenty to come for him in the future. I think we didn't touch on the fact that there was reported interest from Serie A for Conor Barron, which is good. But with regard to Scotland, I'll be very surprised if he plays any part across the. I just want our players to come back in one piece for the game against Hearts and the busy schedule ahead.
Yeah, no, I do agree. That's the one thing with international breaks. You do just hope everyone comes back. Nadim Bajrami, he's featuring potentially against Ukraine and Georgia. It'll be interesting to see if they play him out on the left or kind of centrally. Do generally use him out on the left a lot more now. And Mohamed Diamande, the African Cup of Nations qualifiers, Zambia and Chad. So that'll be kind of interesting again. Hopefully everyone that comes back, and of course good luck to former Rangers Ross McCausland, who will be featuring against Luxembourg, hopefully for Northern Ireland and Bulgaria, and of course former Ranger Vaclav Cherny, he might be featuring for the Czech Republic against Georgia and Ukraine. And of course Yanis Hadji, the man that looks like he has actually signed for a club today, he has been called up for the matches versus Kosovo and Lithuania. And I think I'm just going to go through a couple of questions from the guys in the comments, and then we will head off. So quickly here. One question from Paul. I'll go with you, Cammy. After this rebuild, come next summer, will we need to rebuild, replacing the 14 players out of contract, loans ending, and in that 14, that's including 2 keepers? Ooh, well, that's going to be a tough one next summer, eh, Cammy?
I've just recovered from the summer transfer window, so I'm not even thinking about next summer, to be honest with you. But yeah, there is obviously players out of contract, Suter, etc. there's still plenty building to be done. I don't think it was ever going to be sorted across one summer window. It's going to be interesting just to see where we are, but we are where we are. 5th of September. This is the squad we've got until January. So just get our head down, win games of football, and take it for there, and allow Kevin Thelwell and hopefully the manager gets a winning team on the park, because that will then reduce the noise and allow Kevin Thelwell and the recruitment people to do their job, the board to potentially offer extended contracts, etc. But yeah, I think there's still lots needing to happen, and I think we've probably done more this summer than I expected.
Yeah, no, definitely. This one, could we see a change of formation, Jack? An overload of central defenders and midfielders seems ideal for a 3-5-2. My head says Martin won't change much, but I never know. You never know, I guess.
Yeah, I think maybe for a couple of games against some of the jobbers at Ibrox, where we can get two of the wingers playing sort of out wide, go with Chirbite, maybe get Danilo a game in a 2, Miovski. I could see it, but Martin seems very pragmatic. I imagine if we're going to play with a 3, it'll probably be in a tougher game where we're switching between a 3 and a 5 throughout.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I don't think it's going to change too much. I'd love to up top, little and large. I do love it. And lastly, thoughts on Daniel Levy being linked with the 49ers group as a non-executive role. So, of course, there was chat about him leaving his position at Tottenham Hotspur. I think he's a shareholder of about 30% there, I want to say. Could be interesting. Levy, there's been links with Levy before with Rangers in the past. Cammy, do you reckon that he could play a part potentially? If what's buts and maybes, I know.
No. It takes me back to David Murray getting handed 40 million by Joe Lewis and then wasting it, basically. So, yeah, I don't see Daniel Levy, Joe Lewis, anybody coming to Rangers, to be honest with you. I think Daniel Levy is a very good businessman, but I don't think his next role will have any involvement with us.
Yeah, no, it's one of those, isn't it? There's always a link that kind of comes out. But that's just about all we got time for today. We've overran a little bit. There was lots to go into because, of course, it is International Week. And, of course, loads always happens at our club. I'd just like to thank Cammy and Jack for coming on the pod today. The Rangers Journal got lots of stuff coming over the weekend and into next week. If you missed this pod, it will be live again on YouTube. You can rewatch it and it'll be on the audio podcast stores. I'd just like to say a big shout out to Kemar Roof. He set up his own footballing academy, so I do wish him well there. And of course, the Scottish Masters football is coming back. The confirmed clubs are Aberdeen, Celtic, Dundee United and Rangers, so the six-a-side football tournament is back. Just remind you of the Tenants Sixes days, all the glorious days. Well, every night is a Rangers Journal night. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone in the comments. Make sure you are liking and subscribing to the Rangers Journal. Take care, everyone. See you later.